Okay, so today we are reviewing Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. This is the second book in the Harry Potter series, and today we're going to talk all about it. So if you have not seen my reviews before, I do two sections: a spoiler-free section where I discuss 3 pros and 3 cons about a book in a spoiler-free way, and then I do a spoiler section where I get to rant and rave about all the things that I thought about it in a spoilery way. Now, if you've been keeping up with my Harry Potter series, I am going to be changing this review from the way that I did the first one. With Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, I reviewed the book and then I compared it to the film. I'm not going to be doing that today. I'm simply going to be reviewing the book because I don't want to be taken too much out of the book to focus on the comparison with the film. So we're going to stick with the book and review the book today. Here we go, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So, for my 3 cons for this book, my first con is the plot conveniences. There are way too many plot conveniences in this book. Which kind of ties into my second point, which I'll get to in a moment, but there are just way too many. And I'll now say what my second con is and then tie the two together. My second con for this book is the high action scenes end way too quickly. So I know I said I wasn't going to talk about the films, but a very quick gloss over overview of the film is a comparison of the film to the book is that the film drags out the action scenes. And in a way, I can understand why, because especially with your viewing audience, half of which probably haven't even read the book by the time the film came out, they want to see action scenes go on for a long time, and I can understand that. But in the book, it doesn't happen that way. There are quite a few scenes where our protagonist or protagonists, depending upon if you see all 3 of them as the main characters, get into some kind of trouble or another, and then within a page, this trouble is resolved really quickly, and especially towards the end, when Harry is dealing with the last thing that he deals with in the book, the massive climax at the end. The way that the climax is brought about is done so incredibly well that by the time you get to the climax, as the reader, you can't help but want to, read all about what's going to happen now that we've gotten there. And some plot convenience takes away from really being able to enjoy the climax of the book because it's over way too quickly. So one thing that I will say is I do believe firmly that this book is a middle grade book. I don't know if it is or not, but in my opinion it is because of the plot conveniences. As the series goes on, the action scenes either don't have plot conveniences or the plot conveniences are they take a long time to come into effect. But certainly in this book, it is just really almost ridiculously too quick. And yes, I'm being a little judgmental here, but this is my second favourite series of all time. So I love this book and I will gush about it in the spoiler section, but I just need to make this point known. Harry gets into a spot of trouble and boom, here's a plot convenience, he's now out of that trouble. And so it does read in that way as a middle grade book rather than a young adult book where when someone gets in trouble, they need to work their way out of it and not rely on something just coming right into the rescue. For example, imagine you have a character that is locked in a room and they have no way out. In a young adult book or even in an adult book, the character will take a long time to deal with the fact that they're locked into the room, try and work out a way to get out of it, and we are there with them as they are working through all the emotions of being locked in this room and having no way to get out of it. Now jump into a middle grade version of the exact same kind of story where you have a character that's locked in a room and a couple of lines later, oh, look at that, is that a key amongst the pile of dust? Let's wipe off that key, put it in the door, and oh my god, the door opens. Do you see what I mean? We don't really get to spend enough time in whatever is happening because the plot conveniences are exactly what they claim to be, conveniences that get the characters out of the trouble that they're in way too quickly. So those are two cons that I have about this book. My third con is absolutely nothing because I appreciated everything else about the book, so that's really all I have to say about cons. Let's move on to pros. My 3 pros for this book. First pro is that it is very easy to read. And this is not something that should be laughed at or glossed over, because I this month was reading a book that the writing style was really complex and really hard to read, and it is such a turn off for so many reasons. The fact that this J.K. Rowling's writing style is a really easy writing style to read is definitely something that should be considered as a pro. So that is my first pro to this book. My second pro is that the magic is highly relevant, making it for a fun read. So I've read fantasy books before where the magical element within those books or within those series aren't that high a factor or aren't that big a deal. Some of them might be 5% magic and 95% non-magic. Some of them might be 25% magic and whatever that would make that be. 75? 65? 75? 75% non-magic. Bless my maths. But this book and every book in the series, the magic is at the forefront. And so that is definitely something to appreciate with the fantasy, is that it's all about magic. So yeah, so that's my second pro. My third pro for this book is an emotional scene that occurs at the end of the book that had me on the verge of tears. I have read this book a couple of times, but nowhere near as much as a lot of the other ones, especially the first one. I've read it probably about 10 times. This one I probably read about 3 or 4 times. But there is a scene that occurs right towards the end of the book that is always emotional for me to read in a really, really beautiful, good way. So for those of you who have not read this book, I don't want to spoil it for you. For those of you who have, I'm just going to give you a key word and you'll know exactly what I mean. At the end, Dobby. That's all I'm going to say. Every time it chokes me up in a really good way. So yeah, absolutely love this book. My final thought on this book is that I've always loved this series. However, upon the reread, there were times when I considered bringing my rating back to 4 stars. But by the end of the book, I knew I couldn't do that though, because it's just too good. So there are moments with this reread and being where I am now in my life compared to when I was first reading this book. There are moments in this book where I thought, oh, maybe it's not as good as I remembered, but the ending more than makes up for it. And let's face facts. The biggest thing that everyone is going to remember when they read a book is how it all wrapped up, what the conclusion was, the big climactic moment at the end, and the big climactic moment at the end of this book is really done well. So therefore, it does receive the 5 stars that it deserves. So now I'm going to move over to the spoiler section and discuss in a spoilery way my thoughts on Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So if you're not joining me for that one, I'm letting you go with peace, blessings, and so much love with an incredibly high recommendation to read this book, because the Harry Potter world is just, this whole series is just a really good series, and there is a reason why so many children and teenagers who didn't like to read were turned on to reading because of this one series. And it's because of how good it is. So if you have not read this series before, especially this book, but if you haven't read the series before and you like fantasy and you like magic to be in books, I definitely recommend you read them, because they are written so well. And yet, despite the fact they're written so well, they're also so easy to read. So there's just so many reasons to read these books, and I definitely highly recommend them. But I'll see you guys next time. For those of you who are staying with me for the spoiler version, we'll be back with that in just a moment. Spoiler. 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 Okay, so if you haven't worked it out by now, we're in the spoiler section for Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, so you have been warned, and I am going to jump right in. Let's talk about this. Okay, so starting off with the beginning, when Harry is at home and he hasn't received anything for his birthday, is really sad, and also the fact that Well, actually, I appreciate that the Dursleys are scared of him because they don't know what he's going to do, but one thing that really broke my heart was when he received that letter from the Ministry of Magic, thanks to Dobby's hovering charm with the cake, which you don't get in the film, but you do get in the book, stating, "As you know, you are not allowed to do magic outside of school," and to which Uncle Vernon responds saying, "Oh, you never told us you weren't allowed to do outside of school, ha ha ha," and yeah, I really didn't appreciate that. So, because it just made me feel horrible. Finally, Harry has some kind of respect, even if it's a respect out of fear from the Dursleys. And now that has just been taken completely away, and bars are placed on his window. His door is locked from the outside. There's a little dog flap that's placed into the door where meals are passed through every day. He's let out once or twice to have a bathroom break, and other than that, he is locked in his room all day. And it's just horrible. It really is. Yes, in the first book, he is living in the cupboard under the stairs, but this is much worse than what it was. So there is a really hilarious moment in this book where Harry is taunting Dudley, that threatening to use some magic on Dudley, and oh my god, it's so worth it. Harry gets punished for it afterwards, but oh my god, it was so worth it. And how Dudley's squealing out to his mum, "Mummy, he's gonna do the M thing." It's so good. I love that Harry finally has something to hang over his cousin, who has not only bullied and tortured him his whole life, but also made sure that he has no friends, threatening to torture anyone who tries to befriend him. So finally, Harry had something that he could hold over his cousin, and I just really appreciated that. I love Dobby, so I will now talk a little bit about him. So when he does appear, it is really uncomfortable because obviously Vernon Dursley has the family that's coming over that's looking to invest in drills. I keep forgetting that Vernon Dursley works in making or selling drills, and I can't think of anything less exciting, which I think is the point of the book. But anyway, so obviously this couple, husband and wife, are coming over to see if they want to order a ton of drills so that Vernon's company can make a lot of money. So he has to be, he has to do what he can to win them over to make that money, and they're all going through what they're going to be doing from the moment that this couple arrives to the moment that they leave. And of course, every time Uncle Vernon asks Harry, "What are you going to do?" Harry's answer is always the same: "I'll be in my bedroom making no noise and pretending I don't exist," which is so rude. But anyway, and then to have this creature be in his room while this is going on, it was just really uncomfortable. You just felt like, this is not the right time. And I really appreciate how Harry responds to Dobby, saying, "Not to be rude or anything, it really isn't a good time for me to have a house elf in my room right now." And it really would have been great if Dobby had come the day before or if he'd come the day after, but the fact that he had to come right in that moment, yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, walking on eggshells in that moment. But I do love Dobby. I love how much Dobby loves Harry, and you can learn a lot about the house elves with the one line where Harry says, "Why don't you sit down?" And Dobby says, "Sit down? What? Never has he been asked to sit down by never has Dobby been asked to sit down by a wizard." Like, already you're going, wait, what? How terribly are you being treated? And his quirks of how he has to punish himself every time he tells Harry something. And it starts off as a bit of a quirk. I think by the end of the book, I just feel really bad for Dobby with everything he has to put himself through, with also everything he gets put through by the Malfoys. But yeah, so Dobby's trying to obviously convince Harry not to go back to Hogwarts School because there's a plot, something's going to happen, but he can't tell Harry what's happening, which is really annoying. Now, unlike in the film, which really annoyed me, I know I said I wasn't going to make comparisons to the film, but this scene has always stuck out in my mind because of how wrong it is. In the film, and I think it's just for comedic relief and nothing else, when Dobby does the hover charm with the cake, Harry's obviously running after the cake to try and grab it and make sure it doesn't go over the woman's head, whatever her name is, and splat all over her. So that when Dobby does click his fingers and release the cake, Harry's there with his hands like this as if he'd thrown the cake. This does not happen in the book. In the book, Dobby does use the hover charm, but the cake falls in the kitchen. The cake does not fall on the woman at all, and all they hear is a clatter or a noise that shows that the cake has fallen. So I don't like how dramatic it was in the film because it didn't stay true to the book, and I'm very much someone who loves to stay true to the book. But anyway, so obviously Uncle Vernon then gets upset, puts the bars on his windows, and then Harry is eventually freed from all of this by Fred and George and Ron. And in the movie, Vernon Dursley falls out the window, which that does not happen in the book. Again, we're trying to be dramatic for no reason, but that's fine, that is what it is. So now Harry gets to see his first view of the burrow where Ron lives, and the first time I read this book, I was exactly like Harry, looking around the house, while reading it, looking around the house, and thinking, this is a brilliant home. Like, how amazing is this? And obviously Ron's saying it's not much, but it's home. And obviously in the film, Harry says when he's inside the house, because in the book he says it outside the house, but in the film, inside the house, Harry says, I think it's brilliant. And it is. There's so many magical things going on, and it's just, yeah. And that clock, oh my gosh. Anyway, so obviously, Miss Weasley gets really upset with the boys for taking the car, and then all that stuff happens. Ginny's introduced. Ginny is scared of Harry, and she's just embarrassed. She loves him. And we eventually fast forward and moving on into Diagon Alley. Now, this whole thing with the flu powder really annoys me, how Harry ends up at Nocturne Alley. Now, I understand for the purpose of the plot why he ends up there, because we learn things there that you do not learn in the film. Okay, the film cut out something to me that was really important. But anyway, because there is an object in Borgin and Burke's, which is where Harry ends up, in case you haven't read the book but you've seen the film, that comes up in a later book that is very incredibly relevant, but it's very much skipped over in the book. In the film. In the film, you only see Malfoy and you see Lucius, and then Harry escapes and nothing happens. But in the book, Harry hides in this cupboard. That's a very important cupboard in a couple of books' time. And then Lucius comes in and he's talking to Borgin about things that he's looking to sell because of all these raids that are going on, all these wizarding raids, and he has all these dark magical items in his home that he wants to get rid of so that he doesn't look like the bad person he actually is. And yeah, so there's a lot that goes on there. So then we continue on through Diagon Alley, and not really much happens that's interesting. But then we finally go to platform 9 3/4. It's the day to go to Hogwarts, and Harry and Ron can't get through the barrier. This always annoyed me, but upon this current reread that I've just done, what annoyed me even more was that Ron thought it was a good idea to go and fly the car. Now, I think there's going to be a lot of differing opinions on this, and you can sound off in the comments below, but I don't understand why he thought this would be a good idea. Like, did he really think his mum and dad were going to get upset with him because he missed the train? Why didn't he just stand there and wait for his mum and dad to come back through? And I do understand he does make the point, what if mum and dad can't get back? But Harry even makes the point not to fly the car, but maybe we should just go wait by the car. And I think that would have been a much better idea. Then Mr. and Mrs. Weasley would eventually come back, because now we know that Harry couldn't get through because of Dobby. So once they'd left the platform, the barrier would have unsealed itself. They would have gone back through. They would have taken the boys to the school and explained, well, they couldn't get through for whatever reason, but here they are, and there would have been no issue. So it just annoyed me. I feel like Ron has, and this is just my opinion, and I'm sorry if anyone, it gets upset that I'm saying this, but I feel like Ron has been placed into at least the first half of the series for comedic value, and that's it. yeah, I just and that just I don't know. It doesn't impress me. I'm sorry, but it doesn't. So obviously, then we end up at Hogwarts, and we end up the car crashes into the Whomping Willow. The Whomping Willow becomes a really big part of the next book, but I again don't like how the film did this, but that is what it is. And they then run into Snape eventually, who catches them and tells them, yeah, you were seen, and if you're in my house, I would expel you tonight, but it's up to McGonagall. McGonagall does not expel them. And then we go through the second year of Hogwarts. Now, the classes don't seem to be that much of a priority, but one thing that I appreciated upon rereading this book as opposed to watching the film is that in the film, Professor McGonagall tells all the students about the Chamber of Secrets, but in the book, it's not McGonagall. It is Harry's history teacher, Professor Binns. Now, Binns does not make an appearance in any of the films, which is really disappointing because Professor Binns is Harry's only ghost teacher, so it would have been, I think, really amazing, whether you've read the book or not, to see a ghost teacher teaching classes, as boring as History of Magic is written to be. But anyway, yeah, it's Binns who ends up telling everyone, and for the first time, the class seem really engrossed in what he's saying, that he keeps talking about the Chamber of Secrets, even though he doesn't believe it exists, and it was a really exciting moment to read. And yeah, obviously, eventually, Harry starts hearing this voice and starts thinking that it's some invisible thing. That's not mentioned in the film either. And eventually, we find out Harry speaks Parseltongue. That does make sense. We were given a clue to that in the first book with him speaking to the snake at the zoo. So, yeah, that all ties in really well. And eventually, Harry works out, and it takes him a while, but he eventually pieces everything together and goes into the chamber. I'm not going to talk about Aragog and the spiders, except to say one thing that I disliked about the film. I remember the first time I went to see this film, and when we got to the scene with Aragog and the spiders, Ron, which I do not, Rupert Grint, I was trying to remember his name. Rupert Grint, who plays Ron in the film, has these amazing comedic faces that he's pulling because of how scared not only Ron is, but apparently Rupert doesn't like spiders either, of spiders. And what really annoyed me, first time I'm watching this film, Aragog says some really important things. Hello, Aragog is the one that reveals that Moaning Myrtle died because of the monster in the Chamber of Secrets, and yet everyone else in the cinema watching with me, which was admittedly a younger crowd, were all laughing because of the face that Rupert Grint is pulling because of the spiders, and they were missing the important point of the film. So I did not like that the film over-dramatized once again with Ron, especially during something as important as Aragog saying, there was a girl who was killed by this monster in the chamber. She was killed in a bathroom. It's a massive moment in the book, but rant over. Let's get into the chamber itself. So this chamber is incredibly impressive. The book does the chamber slightly the film does the chamber slightly differently to the book, but I do find both to be impressive, the book chamber and the film chamber. I love both of them. I just think that, yeah, they look really good. But what I, excuse me, but what I love most is Harry's interactions with Tom Riddle. This is the climax, and it is done so very well. I don't know what other people think about the casting of of 16, I think it's 16-year-old Tom Riddle in the film, but I think they casted him really well. He's said to be a good-looking, charismatic guy, and I felt that the actor played the role really well. But even in the book, I really appreciate this scene of how, and for me, this is a reread. I know what's coming. I know he's going to write with, in the book, Harry's wand. He's going to write Tom Marvolo Riddle and then swap that to say, I am Lord Voldemort. I know this, but I'm still excited for the moments that lead up to the reveal that he is Voldemort. And it's just, it's so well done. But then we get to the moment where Harry faces the basilisk, and this is over way too quickly. It's like a page or two, and that is it. And the film, I feel, did a much better job than the book, because at least the film made the fight between Harry and the basilisk last a lot longer. Where in the book, it's like a page or two. Oh, basilisk. Oh, here's Fawkes. Fawkes takes his eyes out. Oh, here's the sword. Okay, basilisk dead. Moving on. Oh, let's stab the diary. Okay, Riddle's gone. In like 2 or 3 pages, this drama that has been building, like this final climax that's been building throughout the whole book, is over so incredibly quickly. And that was, yeah, a con for me. But otherwise, it deserved the 5 stars that it did receive. Now, obviously, once Riddle is... obviously that's a big part too, when Harry uses the basilisk fang to stab the diary, which is what gets rid of Riddle, because in future books, the diary does come back up as being a really big part of the point of the whole series. So I'm glad they kept that obviously in the film, and I'm also glad to talk about it here, but I just feel that it was done way too quickly, and the way it's described in the book is something like, and then Harry picked up the fang and almost felt like he knew what he was going to do all along. It was like on pure instinct. He picked up the fang and smashed it into the book. I don't know. I don't know. I wish it was explained a little better than that. But anyway, let's move on. It does make sense, but I just wish it was explained better than that. So we get to the end. Ginny is obviously rescued. In the book, something you may not know if you haven't read the book, Molly and Arthur Weasley actually do come to the school, which makes sense because their daughter is in the chamber and her body is apparently going to lie there forever. But in the film, apparently they don't care, or they're not told, which both sound terrible. But anyway, Ginny's eventually rescued. Lockhart loses his mind. And we'll quickly talk about Lockhart, but it needs to be really quick because I'm running out of time. Okay, I don't like Lockhart. And there are some people who love Lockhart. There are some people who hate Lockhart. There are some people who love to hate Lockhart. I don't like Lockhart at all. I just don't like the character. I really wish there was another character that was brought in there, not one that was so dim-witted as Lockhart is. I understand that he's charming and he's the winner of Witch Weekly Smile Award, which he says every other chapter, and that, you know, he's great with memory charms, but really he's... how did he even get hired for this job? Like, can I talk to Dumbledore? I want to go back in time and be like, Dumbledore, why did you hire this guy? You knew he was a quack, as far as being a teacher, that he was a quack anyway. Why did you hire him? You knew he was. But anyway, it is what it is. So now I want to get to the conclusion where everyone ends up coming back to the... obviously Hermione has been petrified, and I've left all that part out of it, but that's because I didn't really want to talk about that. Everyone comes back into Dumbledore's office. Ron, Harry, Ginny, Molly, and Arthur. And then Molly, Arthur, Ginny, and Ron leave while Dumbledore talks to Harry, and I love that whole scene. I love the scenes where Dumbledore is with Harry in the book. In the films, I loved the first 2 films with Dumbledore. Obviously, unfortunately, the actor who played Dumbledore died, so they had to replace him for the 3rd film, and I didn't like Dumbledore from then on in the films, but in the first 2 films, I thought that the actor there did a really good job. But I love Harry's moments that he has with Dumbledore in the books, and how Dumbledore says to Harry, well, you know, you may think that it doesn't matter that you asked the hat to go into Gryffindor, but it is our choices that make us who we are, and not our abilities. And it was just such a beautiful speech. In walks Lucius Malfoy with Dobby, and Harry has a moment of, Dobby, this is who you serve. Oh, and Dobby comedically, which I appreciated in the book so much, and he does it in the film, but in a more subtle way than it is in the book. Dobby keeps pointing to Lucius as Lucius is talking to Dumbledore about the diary, going, he did this, you know? And then we have the moment where, okay, it's very different in the book than what it is in the film. In the film, Harry gives Lucius Malfoy the diary back, and in the diary is the sock. In the book, Harry doesn't give the diary back, which to me makes so much more sense. Why would you give the diary back to him? Wouldn't you want to give it to Dumbledore? Let Dumbledore dispose of it in the proper way. And yeah, it's just my thought. but Harry just takes a sock off his foot, I think, and then gives it to Malfoy. Gives it to Lucius Malfoy, who's like, ugh, and, drops it basically, and Dobby catches it. And then Dobby lights up and says, Master has given Dobby a sock. Dobby is free. Oh my god, every time it gets to me. Bless Dobby, I'm so happy he's free. Yay. Yeah, I think that's everything that I wanted to... Oh, yes, the last thing I want to discuss is Sir Nicholas de Momsey... Sir Nicholas de Momsey Pimpington? Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington, which is his real name and not Nearly Headless Nick, which that always annoyed me that everyone just suddenly called him Nearly Headless Nick like that was his name. It's not his name. It's actually really rude to call him that. It's like saying, hey, you there, pimply face Scarhead. No, his name is Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington. Has a Death Day birthday, which is not shown in the film, and I wish it was because it is so cool. And Harry is helped out by Sir Nicholas, who Harry's caught by Filch dragging mud into the castle because he was playing Quidditch. And Filch gets really upset with him and is going to write a letter to Dumbledore. But as he's about to start writing this letter to Dumbledore, Sir Nicholas gets Peeves, who is also not in the films, to cause some chaos so that Filch runs away and forgets about it. And Harry, to thank him, when asked if he would go to Sir Nicholas's Death Day party, says yes. And then Harry, Ron and Hermione, rather than going to the Halloween feast, which they go to the Halloween feast in the film, but in the book they don't, they go to Sir Nicholas's Death Day party, which was pretty cool, and I really appreciate that. I wish it was in the films. All in all, I love this series. This is probably not my favourite book, but I don't think that should reflect the star rating that I give it, because this book is a really good book. And if this book was a standalone Harry Potter and there was just one and it was called Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, I would give it 5 stars because it is really well done. It's not my favourite in the series, but it still deserves its 5-star rating. So I'm going to leave that there. That is my half-hour review of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So have you read this book? Have you seen the films? What are your thoughts? Comment below and let me know. I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to leave that there and let you guys go. Peace, blessings, and so much love. Mwah. I post videos every Monday, Thursday, and Sunday, with Mondays being my review day, Thursday being my midweek vlog, and Sunday being my end of week vlog. So I'll see you again soon. Peace, blessings, and so much love, and happy reading. Bye guys. Bye.